with independence, someone I can look up into, and she's a character that I really love. I mean, she's not perfect. No one is perfect. She has her own problems with guys, but at the same time, I really love how she's so vocal about what she wants, how she go after what she wants. I think that kind of drive to fight for your own happiness and be who you want to be is something I really admire from her. And I was sort of feels like she's the kind of, in a way, I feel like she's more like a big sister, yes, and also a mentor for Miwako. I mean, not just teaching her how to draw, but I think teaching her to learn to accept herself and to let go of her past. And okay, I'm trying not to give too much spoiler, but I think she's a very important figure for her, even though in the beginning some people were saying like, oh, she just worked part-time at her place. But I think their connections, like you mentioned, is a slow burn, and it's actually getting very deep because we start to talk about their emotions. We start about that kind of deep connections that women forms with each other, where they start to mentor each other, they start to learn from each other. And I think it's really beautiful. I wanted that kind of relationship, that kind of positive relationships.
Yeah, I agree. She's definitely one of my favorite characters in this book. I think it's the strength in her that's really this. She's a very powerful, assertive person, and she's also just as you said, the kind of person that you look up to and want to be friends with. By the sound of it, she's just so confident and really knows her place in the world, which I think is great, and feels empowered, to be herself, as you say. One of my other favorite parts of this book, if not my favorite, I think it's hard to say, but I really loved your introduction of the zine, and I just want to reassure everybody we're being really careful about spoilers here, so this is not a problem to talk about. So for those who haven't yet read the story, I'll just explain a little bit. The zine is this publication that one of Miwako's best friends, Chie, we're first introduced to it through her, and she becomes really, really interested in this publication, and it's called The Secret Diaries. And it works like it's composed of several submitted diary entries, and the way that it works is the popular stories move up towards the beginning of the publication as new submissions are received, and they go in at the end, and then readers vote for their favorite stories, and that's how they end up being ranked in the next issues. And so I just thought that this was a really cool idea, first of all, and also just a great addition to the story in terms of how it like really subtly links different people and things together. And so, and plot devices as well. I think it's great. So my first question about it is, does this kind of publication exist? And if not, when are you starting it? Because I want to subscribe.
I joined something similar when I was young, I think in high school. But it wasn't a normal zine. It was on a website, so you can just type your diary, and then after that you can just post it. And I think in the beginning I was thinking like, this is so strange. Like you're supposed to put a diary, but you're supposed to let the world to see it. But at the same time, I also sort of feel like I think it's the beginning of life journal. I mean, it's been a while since we heard the word life journal. I mean, it's the beginning of the blogging where you talk about your life and people get interested. And actually, there is some kind of I feel like there is some kind of excitement when people is interested in your work. But I remember at one point of time I thought that, I don't really need to write about my boring life. I can just write anything since this is anonymous, So I think the idea came from that. It wasn't a real scene. It was on the website at one point of time. And at one point of time, I really spent a lot of time there reading other people's entry, writing my own, pretending to be someone else. So I guess it came from previous experience, but not exactly the same way. But because this novel is set in 1994, where the internet has not come, so I came up with the idea of the zine because I think that what will happen if it were to be set at that time. I think the idea of writing something without your name can be very liberating.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely is liberating for the characters in this book. And it also gives, as a plot device, it works so well for revealing little parts of the characters, but also allowing them to have these sort of what we feel as though are private voices. So beyond the narration that we've already got access to, we also have this private access to their really like inner thoughts almost, because we've already got that. And so again, I love this insight that we're given as readers to to the story, where we feel as though we're privy to this, to real like secret information. But as you said, like there's that ability to come up with different narratives. And I wondered if when you were including this part, for me this was the part in the novel where I started to go, yes, there are lots of like different ways in which people can tell their own stories and the stories of others. And it made me think a lot more about Miwako's voice and the fact that we only hear from it through a few letters, and that the rest of it is recounted. So can you talk about sort of like reliable and unreliable narrators, and how you go about constructing a story about somebody through others' perspectives in that way?
I think it's very interesting when the same person look at the same two different person look at the same thing, they can think about different things. Like for example, if there is a glass in the water, we can say it's half empty and it's half full. So I think because we have three different narrators, the story is actually colored in their own way. Like first, I remember my editor was asking me, is Miwako pretty? Because if you read it from the first perspective from Ryusei, to him, she's very pretty. But if you read it from the second perspective, which is from the best friend, she's actually just a normal girl. But you know, when a guy like a girl, everything about her is pretty. She's amazing. She's perfect. You know. So I think this kind of different color. I think my friends once told me something like, we view the words with a tinted glass. So there's no way that if the story is being retold by another character, so there's no way that you're going to get a fully translucent of what happened exactly. It's going to be slightly colored with what the person's think about their feeling, about their point of view, about their view of life. Maybe she's doing something. If I don't agree, I can just describe it in such a bad way. But if I agree, I can just make it such a nice thing that she choose. So I think, yeah, it's talking about, I wouldn't say it's unreliable narrator, because it's not that they're lying purposely, but it's more like because they're feeling colored their glasses, what we see is slightly different, but it's still the same thing. And I think that's one of the interesting thing of, you know, putting a different glasses and saying different thing and you get the rainbow. I was just being cheesy because the cover have a bit of rainbow.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that I keep on feeling that maybe Ryusei see everything with a pink tinted, and maybe Chie see with another color, and together they add in. But I still feel even to add in all three, you still have to add in your own perspective as a reader to get the full pictures, and everyone will have different pictures.
Yeah, and you leave space for the reader to do that as well, which is another thing that I really appreciate about it. I think it ties in with that feeling of having insider information that you get from reading it, is that you can also start to form your own opinion before you've read things. And like a lot of novels that have plenty of mystery, you definitely will, when you're reading this one, find yourself trying to guess ahead as to what happened and how each character has got to where they are. So I'm just conscious of the time, so it's nearly 7. Please don't forget to send your questions through for Clarissa. I still have plenty more, but I want to leave time for yours. So send any that you have through to Jennifer so that she can read them out later. And now I want to talk about the way in which you have tackled writing about some very serious and some very difficult and often traumatic topics, because of course it's no spoiler that this is about Miwako's suicide, but the way in which you've written about this you've written about these topics in such a way that they are accessible to the reader, and the way that you've written it sort of carries the weight of those topics so that you can read it without having to necessarily it doesn't feel, despite how traumatic some of the subjects are, it doesn't feel as though you are being traumatized as the reader in reading about them. So I wanted to ask about how you approach these topics and the way in which you ensure that happens so that the story is still accessible to your reader and enjoyable, because ultimately it's a very enjoyable book, and it is very optimistic, a book.
Okay, so basically, I think I grew up with a family that tell me, "Oh, we don't talk about bad things," and you know, like it's maybe it's an Asian things. Like there's certain topic that is like taboo. You don't talk about this kind of topics. But at the same time, I feel like these are important topics, like whether we are talking about suicide, or we are talking about mental illness, whether we are talking about bullying and identity, we're talking about gender. I believe that these are important, and we shouldn't just put it under the carpet and pretend they didn't exist, because all of these are happening right now and they're important issue. But at the same time, I also want to make sure that it's not just going to be something bleak, but it's also, I want to have a positivity there. I want to have a hope there. And I think the most important to me also is to be respectful of the topic, because these are not easy topics. I'm being very careful with writing them, and I get my friends to read it. If there is anything that they feel problematic, I always tell them, just let me know. We have to make sure that it doesn't hurt anyone. I think it's very important to make sure that readers don't get hurt because I'm saying insensitive thing. So I think the more difficult the topic is, the more careful you have to be. I'm not saying that we have to tiptoe around the topic. I mean, this is, to me, it's important. We have to talk about it, but be more careful, be more respectful, be more considerate, I guess. And if you are not sure, you have to make sure that you know what's going on. If you're not sure, discuss it with other people, because obviously I'm just one person. If it's just me, I probably will step on someone's toe, but because I have friends that help me read it, give me their opinions. I mean, I hope that it's still, even though the topic is dark, it still give a lot of positivity, and it still feel very respectful to these topics.
Yeah, is that how you also approach writing, from the perspective of characters who have different experiences to you? So as a writer, we often all write about characters who are different from us.
Yes.
But yeah, particularly if they're, because this novel is set in Japan and the characters have different cultural upbringings. And is that how you approach it as well? You get lots of people to read it, and obviously the research that you mentioned.
I think from the base, as I'm writing it, I want to make sure that I'm being respectful and I'm being careful. My debut novel is actually, the main character is a Japanese man, and I didn't really think about it until when the book is out. Everybody was asking me, why are you choosing a male narrator? Because I didn't think about it at that time. I just feel like it's the right narrator for the story, so I choose that narrator. I didn't really think about it. But I do have male friends reading about it and giving me some feedback, like, but you also have to be careful not to stereotype, oh, all males are like this or female are like this, because as you know, we have males that behave not in the way that people usually say, oh, male, they are very logical, but I also have male friends that is not so logical and more of the feeling kind of person. So it's very important not to stereotype. But yes, first thing, I think when we are writing, we have to be conscious that the writing have to be respectful. We have to do it with care. And I think when you have good intention, it will come out good. But if you just don't care about it, then there'll be a lot of problems. And of course, I feel like blind spot is very easy. So I always have to make sure, at least, even if I do a simple changes, just like a very little one paragraph, I always send at least to one friend. I just want to make sure I don't do anything stupid, you know. And I have some trusted friends that they don't complain, that I just send them one paragraph and I say, can you just check, make sure this is okay. And sometimes I think maybe it's writer also. I'm always worried. I'm the kind of more of the insecure writers. Like I like to second guess myself, but I think it's also important to second guess yourself. Once you are very sure of your writing, you think you can't do nothing wrong. I think most likely you'll do a lot of things wrong. I think it's important to second guess yourself, to make sure that, am I doing it right? Am I doing it not right? I always feel like I'm not very confident actually. Maybe that's why I always look up at characters like Fumi, because it's like so confident at what she's doing. But I also feel like as a writer, it's actually served me well that I'm always nervous about what I'm writing. I'm always not sure about it, because I actually check with people. I actually make sure that's okay. And I think that helps, especially when we are writing sensitive topic or experience that is different for ours. I think it's helpful if you actually second guess yourself.
I agree. No, I agree. In that case, I think it is a good kind of second guessing yourself, not about your abilities, but about the way in which you frame it and approach the topic. on the topic of writing, tell me about your favorite scene to write in this book, and your favorite character as well.
I think my favorite character is the easy one. I really love Fumi. But I think favorite scene is more difficult because there is so much that I like throughout the books. I really sorry. I really like the early parts that Miwako went with Ryusei to see the bookstores and, you know, hunting for books and things like that, secondhand books. I always love like bookstore dates. I mean, it sounds very geeky, but yeah, I love bookstore dates. And actually, some of the books that's mentioned there are some of my favorite books. Like I love Great Gatsby, I love Alice in the Wonderland, things like that. And I think going to the bookstore with people that you love, I think those are a great experience. And also the cat, I really like them as scene also. I mean, playing with a cat, and you know, I feel so tender to me. And it's important to have this kind of sweet moments. I mean, the topic is quite difficult, but you have to have the sweet one too. I also love the high school scene because it, to me, is kind of nostalgic. I mean, in my school last time, there was like bullying also happening and things like that. And sometimes we just want to escape, and there is a pressure to dress a certain ways, to follow a certain trend. So writing them, it feels quite nostalgic to me. Actually, I love drawing, but I'm not really good at it. So I love, not really good at it. I love Fumi's scene also, like how she drew things and how her feelings go towards the drawing. And I love her interactions with AJ. I think they have I mean, they're fighting, but I feel like the chemistry is great between them, and it's just interesting to see them like bantering to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's many things that I love, like the Japanese food that I really love. I guess I like to put my favorite things in my book, like the book that I like or the food that I like, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it shows. I think it really shows that there's been a lot of consideration, as I mentioned earlier, and care put into this work.
I'm glad.
It's a novel that has a lot of secrets. It's very mysterious, as we've talked about, and all of your characters have secrets of some sort, of varying degrees of pressures in their lives. And I wonder that when you're writing about these, and also concerning pacing your plot, how you choose what information to reveal and what to retain. Can you talk a bit about that? Is it a lot of process of drafting and redrafting, or does it sounds like you're not much of a planner, so and it works as it comes? Can you talk a bit about that?
Actually, the interesting thing about when I tell people is that usually I don't really know what book I'm going to write unless I write it. So I'm the kind of person that I discover the story as I write them. So if you ask me like, why did she committed suicide? I don't know. I only know after I write it. So there are a lot of secrets there. I don't plan of any of the secrets. They just came out as I write them. So they're a surprise to me too. But of course, when it comes to the whole NaNoWriMo finish, there is a lot of pacing problems that where the editing came. So it took me usually 1 or 2 months to write the first draft, but it will take me like 1 or 2 years or more, at least 2 years to edit it. So I do a lot of editing, mainly pacing, but I really need to get it down to writing first, because otherwise I don't know what's the story, because I don't plot at all. Sometimes I cut a lot of things from a book. Sometimes I feel like this is not relevant. I cut them. I think sometimes the novel can be like 2 times and then getting smaller, and then I have to write scene. There's a lot of editing, very heavy, but I don't plan anything. I just believe you have to trust your characters, and then hopefully they will bring you to great places.
I want to ask a couple more questions before I hand over to Jennifer for audience questions, if that's okay. I'd like to ask about your decision to include elements of magic realism in this novel. So again, being careful to avoid spoilers if you haven't read it. What made you? What draws you to that method of storytelling?
I think from my first novel, my debut novels, there is a little bit of elements of magical realism, but at the same time, it's not fantasy. So I guess the first thing is I'm always fascinated with dreams, because sometimes I dream of something and I thought, this happened in real life. Or sometimes in real life, I thought, I dreamed about this place before. And I love how the reality and the dream sort of like mixed together. And I just want this magical sparkle thing in my book, but at the same time, I don't want it to be a fantasy. I want it to be something that is light. So it's just like a little bit magic, but not too much.
Yeah, and it's really well integrated into that, into your novel. And you're still very firmly rooted in the world that you've established, but it just adds that spark, as you say.
Yes,
And
I just feel like it's just like a little bit of sparkle, but not too much.
Yeah. So the last question before I hand over to Jennifer for all of your questions, for those who are listening, is this book has been really well received and well reviewed. It's a great novel. I really do encourage you, if you haven't read it yet, to grab a copy. You're often compared in reviews by like publications and also online reviews, personal reviews, to Murakami, which is he's a huge author. It's a very big deal. And I want to know how you feel about that endorsement, first of all, and also how you feel about it in terms of being your second novel and establishing your own voice, because you do have a very unique voice, and that's what everybody says after comparing you to Murakami, is saying it's similar to Murakami, however, she has a very distinct voice of her own. So can you talk a little bit about having a comparison like that?
Well, I think in the beginning it's very hard to describe my books to the buyers. I think that's what happened. Because if you call that a mystery, well, there is a mystery, but it's not a typical mystery book. And if you call that YA, well, the people are young, but it's not really a YA book. And there's romance there, but it's not really a romance book. So a lot of people, I think the publishers especially, say they're not too sure how are they going to market this book. And because the setting is Japan, and it's very easy to just say, it's something like Murakami, because Murakami is well known. And when you say it's something like Murakami, people will imagine, okay, so there's some mystery, there is some mysterious woman, and you don't really need to mention what genre is that. They know, something like Murakami, this is the kind of genre that we are looking for. But at the same time, actually, for Japanese literary fiction, this kind of genre is not just Murakami. There's many amazing writers writing in this genre. For example, like Banana Yoshimoto, Yoko Ogawa, and Mieko Kawakami. I'm currently reading her book.
I've got that as well. That's on my bedside table right now.
It's quite thick. I'm still like, and Hiromi Kawakami, I really love them, and Sayaka Murata. They are all working with this literary fiction, piece of life, a bit of romance, a bit of mystery, and there is a little bit of magic there. And the same of the writing. There's something I would say is evocative in this kind of Japanese literary fictions. So this style is not just Murakami, I would say, but because he's the most known, it's very easy to explain to other people, to explain to the buyers, or to explain to your friends. If you want to recommend the book, something like Murakami, it's become easy. So I can see it from the marketing point of view, why they decided to use that. But if you ask me personally how I feel about that, it's a lot of pressure, I would say. It's really a lot of pressures, because when you say, it's something like Murakami, especially to a Murakami fans, they are expecting a certain thing. And usually what I will tell them is that, in terms of genre, there are similarities. In terms of setting, there are similarities. But if you expect it to be another Murakami book, you might be disappointed. So that's usually what I tell them. I love Murakami. If you ask me, what's one of my favorite writers. And in fact, his book is the book that helped me go through my reading slump after college. So I really look up at him. So I really think he's a great writer, and I can see why his fictions are so popular. But I would like to say again, if you want to buy a Murakami book, I think you should buy a Murakami book. But if you want to try something else, there's a lot of great Japanese writers or books that set in Japan that you can try. But just keep an open mind. Don't keep on reading the books and keep comparing it to Murakami, because you might be disappointed. But I think if you don't have expectations and you just open your mind, you just read it with I want to enjoy a book. It might be something that you like, who knows, or maybe it's not, but at least give it a try. That's what I feel.
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody will be disappointed. It's a really, really great read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. My book club members all enjoyed it too.
I was so glad.
Yeah, thank you so much for chatting with me, Clarissa. This has been absolutely lovely. I might hand over to Jennifer now for any audience questions. Jennifer, have we got any questions?
Yes, we do. We have some lovely questions. Clarissa, Grace has asked if you could tell us more about what your own high school experience was like, and was there anything interesting that informed the experiences your characters had in this book?
I think one of the experience that most of us will experience is that we like somebody, but that somebody didn't like us back. I would say 99% of the population feels that at the point of time in high school. Thank you so much for the question, Grace. But talking about more specific, when I was in school, actually, I experienced bullying. So at one point of time, I was bullied. And this is not something I'm proud of, but at another point of time, actually, I bullied someone. So I've been at both sides of the bullying. And, sometimes there is a pressure that you don't want people to look, you don't want to get bullied. So you end up joining the bullying groups. And it's really sad that we have to come up with this society there. And so for me, I'm actually very lucky that after I moved to, I studied in Indonesia for high school, and then I moved to Singapore for college. I remember when I'm about to finish college, I started working. I'm not sure exactly when. I managed to track the MSN of the person that I used to bully, and I managed to apologize to him. And I think I'm very lucky that he said it's okay, it doesn't matter. He said forgive me, and I'm so glad for that. I'm not proud of that, and even years after I finished high school, I still remember what I did, and I really feel bad about it. So I guess I can understand the girls in the novel. She wanted to apologize. I can understand that feelings, even though it's been years. It was haunting me, and when that guy told me that it's okay, I'm not that he's okay with that, but more like he's willing to forgive me, and he understands that I feel bad about it. I feel so much better. I'm so glad. I think I was so thankful. I think I'm the lucky one that even though I stay overseas, I managed to track the MSN, I managed to apologize. Sometimes you do bad thing and you apologize, doesn't mean that people will forgive you. Nobody is going to owe you apology. You can apologize, people may not forgive you, and you have to accept that when you're doing something, there's consequences. I guess I'm really lucky to that, and that experience, it was something that is very strong to me, and I wanted to write about that. And nowadays bullying doesn't, people thought that you will get bullied in high school. No, actually, I remember my first time getting bullied was in kindergarten. It was that young. So, I still remember it until now. So it can be very traumatizing for children. Kindergarten was when I was like 6 years old. I still remember it until now. So it can be traumatizing experience for children. And that's why I feel like this kind of issues, it's important to talk about it. And if you have kids, it's important to ask them how they're doing in school, to make sure that they know it's safe to open up to you. And basically that's.
You bring such understanding and to this. It's really, really, really delightful. And Clarissa, Grace has also asked if you could just talk about, how do you first begin? Do you start with a concept, an idea, or do you start with a character?
I usually start with some sort of a questions, and for this book, I think for my works, the theme has always been, what if you thought you know a person well, but actually you don't. It is the main theme. But for this, I always had this image that there is this girl that she suddenly passed away, and people thought that everything is okay. And why did that happen? If everything is okay, that wouldn't happen. So I think that's the beginning. And after that, it start with the characters. I'm actually, because I don't have plot, to be honest, I never have any plot. I don't know what's going to happen. So I usually will start with the characters. So the character will start to explore, and that's where the plot is going to be revealed. So as a writer, I'm just going to follow them. And sometimes it's very interesting because there are many things that I didn't know, and then it just suddenly come out, and I'm actually quite surprised. Wow, that's a great twist. But I feel like they actually have a mind on their own. Like sometimes I will have some sort of ending in mind. Like that's what happened to my first novel, that I had an ending in mind, but when the ending come, I realized the ending doesn't fit anymore, because the character bring me to a better place. And I think one of the things I really love about reading is after you close the book. I mean, people usually they like it when they are reading the book. But for me, the best moment is after you close the book and then you start to think about the character, and then you start to write your own story to continuing that. I think that's the most amazing experience to me.
Yeah.
So
moment, isn't it? We have some questions from Learnsey. She has a few questions, but they all revolve around your publisher and your relationship with the publisher. She's interested in how you came to have Scribe as your publisher, and also in the role that you were able to play in the beautiful, whether you had a role in the beautiful cover that your book has.
I like to take credit, but actually not. Maybe I just talk briefly. I have an agent, and my agent is the one who is responsible to sell my manuscripts to the publishers. I'm not sure about Australia, but in Singapore, actually not everybody have an agent, because you can just send it to the local publisher. They're okay with that. You don't need an agent. But in US, if you go for the big publishers, you need an agent. So my agent actually sells my novels to my US publisher, which is a Soho Press. And then Soho sold it to Scribe. So that's what happened. Soho sold it to Scribe. And I always love looking at covers. I mean, I have translations for the first novel. I have I think so far 10 different translations. And I have a few, even English, there is 3 different, there is a US, UK, and there's a Singapore edition. And there is a subtle difference. Sometimes they will use the same cover as the US. Sometimes they will come with a completely different covers like the UK. So it's always interesting. If you ask me my preference, I prefer a different cover because I love looking at the different cover. I'm the kind of person who judge a book by the cover. I have 2 copies of The Great Gatsby just because both cover looks nice. So I bought 2. One is paperback, one is hardcover. I cannot decide, so I buy 2, and it's the same book. I have 2 copies of Alice in the Wonderland, different edition. So I'm that sort of person. When it comes to cover, it depends on the publishers, because some publishers, they give me a very long list of what kind of image do you have in mind, what colors do you like, do you have any artworks that you recommend, is there any cover that you like. But the thing is, even though you fill the long form, sometimes the publisher will come up with you with a cover that is completely different. So just because you fill the form doesn't mean that they might follow you. Sometimes some publishers, they give me maybe 3 covers. There is one particular publishers overseas for my first one. They give me A, B, C, and they ask, Clarissa, which one do you like? I say, oh, I like all of them. They say, no, you have to choose. So I say, oh, okay, I'll choose A. And then they're saying that, okay. And then after that, they came back to me, no, I think B is better. So, okay, I'm okay with B. And then after that, the book came out and they say, oh, actually the buyers, they prefer C, so we go with C. So there are publishers like that to us. And there are also publishers that ask me, do I have a certain cover designers that I like my Indonesian publishers, and I know Indonesian designers that I think is good. And actually, I submit some names to my editors, and then she worked with them. So I think different publishers, they have different ways of doing this. But I think what's the same is that for me, I believe that my publisher is actually a better person to decide than me. So even if they give me 3 options and that's not my favorite, I believe that they know better what works best for the market. because I don't live there. So I don't know what's the taste in that country, because different country, they have different tastes. Like maybe in Singapore, we like this kind of cover. Maybe in US, they prefer something that is brighter. But it's interesting. For the UK cover, basically, they just gave me the final cover, and I really love it. I really love it. And I didn't expect that there's a rainbow. So this was a very lovely surprise. And I remember I took so many photos just to show the rainbow, but it's so hard to take the photo with the rainbow. I think you need a special lighting. Yeah, basically they engage these cover designers. I forgot what's his name. Something Bird. Let me see where I got the. Okay, I'm not sure where they write it, but anyway, they have this very Lycbird, yeah, Lycbird. So they got this designer Lycbirds that designed this cover, and I think it looked really amazing. Yeah, and I think he also designed some cover for some Japanese literature books that I really love also, like Sayata Murata's book. So yeah, so I'm glad. I really love it, and it's pink, which is like my favorite color. I didn't tell them that, but they just gave it. Yeah, so I'm so happy with that. Yeah.
Lindsay was also interested to know if you could talk a little bit about the author-editor relationship, and how do you find the right balance between being in charge of your story and letting someone else make changes to your story?
For my first novel and my second novel, I guess I'm lucky I'm working with the same editor. I'm working with Soho Press. So so basically it's a US edition. They're the one who published it first. So I'm only working with this editor called Amara. And I think the best thing is because we have the same taste. I mean, I think during our early call, we were talking about books that we like, and then she was talking about, oh, I like this book, and I like the same thing. Oh, I like Murakami, and I like these books, and I can feel like we have the same vibe. I didn't know it then, but I think she has a Japanese heritage. I mean, she's in Hawaiian, but I think there's a lot of Japanese in Hawaii. And I think the best thing is that she respect my voice. She knows that certain thing I write a certain ways because that is my style, that is my voice, and she respect it. But I think for me it's easier because I believe that whatever input that my editor give me is actually to make my book stronger, because we have the same goal. Both of us want this book to be the best it can possibly be. When it's all, I want it to be my 100%. This is the best right now that we can give. So whatever that she gives to me, whatever feedback to me, I might not agree at first. I usually will read it and then I'll take a few days to think about it. And even if I don't agree, I will usually at least try it first. And then sometimes I try it and it doesn't work, I will tell them, look, I tried this and why it doesn't work. But I think it's good to keep an open mind. And I think just trust your editor. And I'm lucky because we have the same taste. We like the same thing. She knows what I want to do. She knows how I want to achieve it. I have a problems of sometimes I'm getting too subtle when I come to writings. And she was telling me, no, nobody understands this. So you have to bring it more. So when I come to writing, I tend to put things a little bit like very subtle to the point that no one understands except me. So I think it's good that she called me on this. And then I start to think, okay, maybe we can put more clue. Maybe we can make it more obvious, make the emotions go up and things like that. And there are many amazing things that she suggested to me. And I can tell you the book is nowhere to this level without her help. And she's doing amazing thing for my books. It's really like magic. It's like, I think a good editor, they make a good book great. I mean, obviously they obviously have to be a certain standard, but when a good editor came in, they can really do magic. And yeah, I'm actually sometimes so surprised. And I think last week I had a conversation with my agent. I was saying like, I feel so lucky that, she suggested this change just because I think it's so much better after her changes. And yeah, I guess keep an open mind and believe in your editor that they want the best for you. I mean, it's to their best interest to make this book the best it can possibly be.
Thank you, Clarissa. And Rebecca has 2 questions. She's curious to know if there will be an audiobook release, and also She also wanted to know, you mentioned a book that you're reading at the moment, and she didn't catch the title.
Oh, okay.
That's an egg.
Oh, it's Breast and Eggs.
Breast and Eggs.
Yeah, it's quite a new book. I feel very bad, but I feel like I'm getting caught by the Murakami outside. Actually, I brought it because of the bird from Murakami. It's here. It took my breath away. So I'm like, okay, what kind of book took Murakami's breath away? I have to read this. But it's a great book. It's very strong in women's issue, and I can feel like I would say it's like feminism in a way. Audiobooks, actually we have audiobook. We do have audiobook already, so yeah, they're already available. But maybe it's actually done by the US side. That's why maybe she didn't know about it. But it's been out, and I think the same narrator is narrating my Rainbirds, my debut novel Rainbirds audiobook as well. Yeah, so yeah, there's audiobook also, and I think audiobook is great because some people, they really prefer audiobooks, like especially when you drive long distance and things like that, you know.
No, indeed. Well, Emma, Kate, and Clarissa, do you either of you have any sort of final comments or that you'd like to make? We're coming to our close.
Thank you so much for coming. Yes, thanks a lot. Especially people at I think certain parts of Australia now is having a storm, and it might not be easy to tune in. I really appreciate it that you came here and join us with these discussions. Yeah. And yeah, also for the people in the book club, thank you so much for reading my books and discussing it. It's always feel amazing. So, and I heard people are reading it and they're actually they enjoy the books. I mean, there's always author's greatest gift, I would say. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you
for
as well.
readers.
Thank you so much, Clarissa, and thank you, Jennifer, for hosting tonight, and thanks everybody for attending. And yeah, if you haven't grabbed your copy, please do. Jennifer's posted that link in the chat box for you. But yeah, thanks so much. It's been lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'd invite you all to unmute yourselves. And I'd just like to say how wonderful it was listening to you, Clarissa, and the balance and sensitivity that you bring to the way you think about ideas and concepts, and difficult ones as well. And I'm really, really excited to read your book.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
I'd like to say thank you so much to Clarissa.
Thank you.
Thanks, Clarissa. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the night.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.